Hey everyone, I hope you're having an awesome weekend. Today we're again talking about Switch 2 because Nintendo's Q&A has been officially translated from their latest investors report. And while we reported on some things from it before, we were reliant upon Google Translate, which does a fairly good job. It is not a one-to-one translation. It's also not Nintendo's own translators putting this into words that we could better understand here in English. And we actually learned a few things about Nintendo's strategy around Switch 2 that I feel like we need to dive into. So we're going to go through the Q&A. There's like 10 questions. So buckle up. It's going to be a bit of a long read, but I hope you guys are ready for what Nintendo has here because I am really, really excited. I'm going to add my own commentary in and my own thoughts along the way as well. We'll put timestamps down below to each question so you guys could jump to the ones you care about the most. That being said, folks, I am Nathaniel Rumpfeljans from Nintendo Prime. We're on our road to 150,000 subscribers. If you're enjoying all of this content at Nintendo Prime, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel and help us achieve that goal this year. All right, as we look down here at the Q&A summary, we're just going to jump right in. And question one from the investor says, I'd like to hear some reasons for the downward revision of your full year financial forecast. Were there any special factors such as consumers holding off on purchases following the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2, the successor to Nintendo Switch? Furukawa says, based on the sales situation in the third quarter, October through December 2024, the prospects for the remainder of the fiscal year, we changed our unit sales forecast for Nintendo Switch hardware and software. We also revised the assumed exchange rate. These and other factors led to us revising our full year financial forecast. We have modified the unit sales forecast, decreasing hardware and software projections by 1.5 million and 10 million units, respectively, mainly reflecting the sales trend during the holiday season. We changed our assumed exchange rate for the end of the fiscal year from 140 yen to 150 yen per US dollar. Cumulative sales of the Nintendo Switch have surpassed 150 million units, and it has developed into a platform with a robust install base. We are positioned again this fiscal year to release many appealing new titles, and this, coupled with factors such as our rich variety of evergreen titles and annual playing users in excess of 100 million, were some of the reasons that led us to set high goals at the start of the fiscal year. During the holiday season, sales of new titles like Super Mario Party Jamboree were strong in every region, and in markets outside Japan, we had solid sales of hardware bundled with software titles like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Although sales were steady for a platform in its 8th year, they did not reach the targets we set at the start of the fiscal year. I wouldn't say that there was no effect at all from people holding off on purchases in view of the upcoming launch of Nintendo Switch 2, but during the holiday season, there were many new consumers who bought Nintendo Switch hardware worldwide, as well as many people buying replacement systems or additional systems. As for software, although unit sales are trending down year on year, we consider that the effect of decisions to postpone purchases was not large, as Nintendo Switch software will be playable on Nintendo Switch 2. Regarding the downward revision in our software sales volume forecast, I think one factor is that there was no single title like last fiscal year's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or Super Mario Bros. Wonder that could give momentum to the overall business and create a buzz that gets a lot of people involved and excited. So here you just see Shuntaro Furukawa essentially saying, look, yeah, Nintendo Switch 2 might have impacted sales, but the impact was probably very low, and really they said at the beginning of the fiscal year that 13.5 million was very ambitious, and clearly it was, since now the target is down to 11 million. Obviously the software target is down as well, and he's probably not wrong. Look, last year was the weakest year in software for Nintendo in terms of mega sellers, Mario Party being the only real mega seller drops. So yeah, I kind of get what he's saying here. Let's go ahead and get into the second question. So question 2 says, what was the reaction from consumers and software publishers after the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the release of the promotional trailer? So, hey, he wants to know what Nintendo sees from the reactions. Furukawa, on January 16th, we announced the Nintendo Switch 2, the successor to Nintendo Switch, would launch in 2025 and released a first look trailer. Details about Nintendo Switch 2 will be presented in a Nintendo Direct Nintendo Switch 2 on 4/2/2025, April 2nd, scheduled to air on April 2nd. In addition, Nintendo Switch 2 experience events, where consumers can go hands-on with Nintendo Switch 2, will be held in various cities around the world. We are happy that many people all over the world watched the trailer, but because we only revealed the name and form factor, we will need to wait until more detailed information is released on April 2nd to get a good sense of their reaction. There is currently a lot of interest, so we will So we will first focus on the preparation for the April 2nd announcement and then offer opportunities for many people to get their hands on the hardware so we can convey its appeal. So again, this is one of those things where if you're trying to gauge how the public has reacted to the Switch 2 trailer, I think it's hard to really get a good gauge. Yes, there's some excitement, there's some letdown, but in the end, you don't really know how people feel about this until you show the games. That's basically what he's saying. Until we show the games, until we let people go hands-on, we're not really sure what the overall reaction is. We just know that we set ourselves up for the next phase to be April 2nd. All right, question 3. I would like to hear Nintendo's thoughts on pricing products. Given the recent inflation and exchange rate situation and the resulting price difference between Japan and outside markets, has your thinking changed regarding what price ranges would be acceptable to consumers for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2? Furukawa. We are aware that, in addition to how inflation is currently proceeding, the exchange rate environment has also changed significantly. Since around the time we launched Nintendo Switch in 2017, we also need to consider the price range that consumers expect for Nintendo products. We think a multifaceted consideration of these factors is needed when deciding on the price of a product. I cannot tell you a specific price for Nintendo Switch 2 at this time, but we are taking various factors into account. Currently, there are no plans to change the pricing of the Switch hardware. So even though it wasn't asked, he pretty much said, we're not planning to drop the price of Switch, at least right now. Maybe that's something they address at the end of the fiscal year. But I will say that, hey, this seems pretty par for the course. This is the one point we emphasized in a prior video that is a little exciting, is that Nintendo is considering what fans and consumers expect for pricing, not just what is like the best pricing to make something profitable. They want it to sell. So will Nintendo sell Switch 2 at a loss? I don't know. I do think $399 is probably the price, but I guess we'll find out in due time. Let's get on to question 4. Regarding the revision of the full year financial forecast, why is the sales volume for software during the fourth quarter of January to March 2025 much lower than the results we have seen in other quarters? Was there a significant change in momentum after the holiday season, or did you set a conservative forecast? And I want to note here that I kind of find this to be a throwaway question because it's well known by most people in the industry that the fourth quarter of a fiscal year, when your fourth quarter is the beginning of a year. So for other people that run a calendar year quarters, the first quarter, but for Nintendo, where the first quarter of a year is actually their fourth quarter, it's almost always the lowest sales time of the year. When you're coming off the holidays, people are usually not looking to spend money until spring. Anyways, Furukawa says, I think the software unit sales forecast of the fourth quarter is currently set at a realistic volume. The lineup of new titles and the sales situation after the holiday season are what primarily account for the lower projected sales volume compared to the results of the last few years. Although there is presently no major change in momentum, we think this is an appropriate forecast for sales volume, considering that we have revealed the name of the Nintendo Switch 2 and its form factor, along with the announcement of a Nintendo Direct that will present detailed information about the hardware. Nintendo has maintained a high level of annual playing users in recent years, and during the holiday season, many people purchased their first Nintendo Switch systems. By conveying the appeal of our evergreen titles to these consumers, we hope that many of them will continue to make software purchases. In addition, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD was released in January and is seeing healthy sales. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition will release in March, and we are working hard to increase sales of both Nintendo titles and titles from other publishers so we can achieve our sales volume forecast. Again, kind of a throwaway question. Sometimes you get these in these investors Q&As where they kind of ask a question that is pretty obvious what the answer is, but, you know, credit to Furukawa for keeping it professional. Question 5. What do you perceive to be the current position of smart devices in Nintendo's business, and what are your plans for them going forward? You have not released any new apps recently, but you have started providing the Nintendo Music audio streaming service for Nintendo Switch Online members, and everybody One Two Switch utilizes smart devices as controllers. So it looks like rather than releasing standalone game apps, you intend to incorporate smart devices into gameplay. In the past, people's first game devices were Nintendo hardware, but that has now changed to be a smart device instead. Please share your insights into this situation. Furukawa. Nintendo has released mobile apps in many parts of the world, including countries and regions we have not reached with our dedicated video game platform business. As of the end of September 2024, cumulative downloads of Nintendo apps exceeded 900 million. I believe this has increased the opportunity for more people to access Nintendo IP and characters. We are currently operating 3 game applications, Fire Emblem Heroes, Mario Kart Tour, and Super Mario Run. In addition, Pikmin Bloom, distributed by Niantic, was developed and is being operated jointly with Nintendo. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp ended operations and service on November 29, 2024, but was converted into a paid application called Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete, which was released on December 3rd, 2024. Although we cannot provide details on future application releases, we are continuing to develop new game applications. In addition, we released Nintendo Music in October of last year. Our intent is to utilize smart devices which have broad penetration to create opportunities for consumers to come into contact with Nintendo game worlds and music even outside of dedicated game systems. Going forward, we would like to continue to develop these type of initiatives, including integration with games for individual titles. As you pointed out, it is true in recent years that many people's first game platform has changed from being a Nintendo dedicated video game system to a smart device. Given this environment, we have considered various ways to utilize smart devices, and we will continue to deliberate on this topic. In the corporate management policy briefing held last year, we stated that we are utilizing theme parks and official stores, visual content, and mobile content to generate interest in our core business, which is the dedicated video game platform business. Going forward, even as we transition to Nintendo Switch 2, it remains important to increase touch points beyond video games. We believe that smart devices will take on a very important role in this endeavor, and we will continue to conduct research and implement initiatives. And there's a note there, the total number of unique users for apps released so far by Nintendo. Now, again, this is one of those things where I don't know what they really expected to hear. Nintendo is very dedicated to using smart devices and outside media like movies and theme parks to drive people to their core business, which makes them the most money. So, again, I kind of like this approach by Nintendo. I know they've, played around with gacha mechanics and all that in the mobile space, but a lot of their games are not really pushing heavy on the revenue making, more so pushing people to maybe want to play the better experiences over on their dedicated hardware. And we have seen like some correlation between like mobile app releases to increases in certain game selling. So we'll have to see if that continues, but still I do appreciate that Nintendo is at least addressing and not ignoring how big the mobile platform is. All right, question 6. Last year, you stated that you would produce enough Nintendo Switch 2 systems to satisfy initial demand. Does this plan remain unchanged? For Nintendo Switch, you had difficulties ramping up production to meet the sharp increase in demand post-launch. Do you think that would be a concern for Nintendo Switch 2? Furukawa says, because Nintendo Switch 2 is planned to launch in 2025, I would like to describe our production plans together with our financial forecast for next fiscal year, which will be announced alongside our financial results for the end of the current fiscal year. As of now, we are taking the risk and proceeding with production to meet as large of a demand as possible. We intend to estimate the volumes of initial demand and subsequent demand based on the response to the Nintendo Direct that will air on April 2nd, as well as the reactions of consumers who try out the actual product at Nintendo Switch 2 experience events. As was true with Nintendo Switch, we believe it will not be easy to rapidly increase production capacity, so based on our prior experience, we are making preparations to be able to respond as quickly as possible. So what he's basically saying is, yeah, Nintendo is planning to make like a ton of Switch 2s, and they're already doing so. However, they're not like at maximum capacity on their ability to make them because they want to make sure they don't overproduce, which could actually be a negative effect for Nintendo. So they're going to wait till they see full public reaction and the pre-order demand and all of that before they decide, you know what, we got to ramp this up even higher. And what he's saying is, well, it's still going to be difficult to ramp up just like it was with Switch. We are more prepared because of our experience with Switch to ramp up quicker. And again, he'll give the initial forecast, what they're planning to have available. He'll say that at the next financial briefing, which ironically happens a little bit after April 2nd, so they'll already have all this information and feedback for Switch 2 to really come up with their full forecast for the next financial year. So very good question, very good response by Furukawa. Question 7. In the third quarter of each year, shipments are made in preparation for the holiday season, so inventory tends to decrease compared to the end of the second quarter. However, inventory at the end of this third quarter, end of December 2024, increased compared to the end of the second quarter, end at September 2024. I would like to know the reasons for this increase in inventory. Is it because inventory related to Nintendo Switch is accumulating due to slower sales during the holiday season, or is inventory increasing because you are preparing to ship out Nintendo Switch 2? If the increase is due to Switch 2 related inventory, what would be an approximate maximum number of Nintendo Switch 2 units shipped in the first fiscal year? Kind of weird, almost ignoring that Nintendo said they're not going to give a number until the next financial meeting, but I appreciate the attempt to pry. Let's see what Furukawa said. So Furukawa, we are unable to provide detailed information on the breakdown of inventory. Wow, who saw that coming? But as of the end of this third quarter, inventory has increased primarily due to preparations for launch of Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025. The current Nintendo Switch related inventory has decreased since the end of the previous fiscal year, end of March 2024, and is at an appropriate level. We are not holding excess inventory. Additionally, we hope to be able to discuss the first fiscal year shipments of Nintendo Switch 2 when we announce the financial results for the current fiscal year and disclose our financial forecast for the next fiscal year. So in other words, yeah, if you look at Nintendo sheets, they have a lot of inventory right now, but that's Nintendo Switch 2 related. They actually don't have that much of Nintendo Switch. They are not stockpiling Nintendo Switches behind the scene. Their inventory massive increase is literally just them stockpiling Switch 2s. Just fully admitting that last fiscal quarter, Nintendo was mass producing Switch 2, and they got a bunch of them ready to go and sitting in inventory. So all good news for launch anyways, especially if they're not launching for another 3, 4, or 5 months, right? All right, let's get to question 8. Can you provide background for downward revision of your full year Nintendo Switch software unit sales forecast? Did you revise your full year sales forecast due to the sales of new first-party titles falling short of expectations? Ooh, that's a pretty sharp question. Furukawa. This revision is due to the estimated software unit sales figures is due to an adjustment of sales volume for both first-party titles and those of other software publishers. In terms of the effect on business performance, the larger impact came from the revision of sales volume for first-party software. In addition, in terms of the sales forecast for first-party software, we are revising the sales volume for both new and evergreen titles released in the previous fiscal year or earlier. In this fiscal year, evergreen titles accounted for approximately 70% of first-party software sell-through, a higher percentage than in previous fiscal year. In the previous fiscal year, sales of new titles like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder increased significantly, so evergreen titles accounted for approximately 50% of first-party software sell-through. In other words, without saying it in so many words, Nintendo's games underperformed their expectations, and they were super reliant on the sale of evergreen titles. He didn't come right out and say it. He's not about to be like, oh man, our titles didn't meet expectations. But he essentially said their titles didn't meet sales expectations. All right, question 9 here. Last October, recruitment of participants began for the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest program to test a new service for Nintendo Switch Online. How is this new initiative going? Also, please tell us your thoughts on the future online strategy for Switch 2. I like this question. Furukawa responds, we conducted a test called the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest program related to a new feature for the Nintendo Switch Online service. We plan to leverage results and other learnings gained from this initiative in future Nintendo Switch Online services, but we have not announced any details. The number of Nintendo Switch Online members tends to fluctuate in correlation with the release of titles that utilize online play, and it is also affected by hardware sales fluctuations. Now that the holiday season is over, the membership level is stable and has not changed significantly from the 34 million of last September, as disclosed at last year's corporate management policy briefing. Nintendo Switch Online will continue to be available for Nintendo Switch 2. We will continue to provide comprehensive services so the consumers who purchase our hardware can enjoy their experiences. In other words, he just gave an Iwata and Reggie style answer. You know how he's usually a straight shooter? Well, today, Furukawa said, I'm going to talk around that question and answer absolutely nothing. Corporate talk. All right, let's go into the final question of the Q&A, question 10. Many people are still purchasing Nintendo Switch. Although its successor, Nintendo Switch 2, was announced, some people may have purchased Nintendo Switch in the hope that new titles for the system will continue to be announced in the future. Will there be many new titles released for Nintendo Switch in 2025 and later, or will evergreen titles constitute the core of Nintendo Switch offerings? Another really good question. Furukawa. So far, we have announced Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond as Nintendo Switch titles scheduled for release in 2025. Since many people are playing Nintendo Switch, if we are able to develop appealing software, we would like to continue to release new titles. On the other hand, exclusive games are crucial when launching new hardware. With this in mind, we will consider various ways for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 to encourage as many consumers as possible to enjoy our games. And the big line in this one is, on the other hand, exclusive games are crucial when launching new hardware. Yes, folks, Nintendo is focused at launch on exclusivity. That doesn't mean there won't be a single cross-gen title, But in terms of that launch year, Nintendo is making Switch 2 exclusive games. That's what their strategy is. That's what they believe is best for business. Doesn't mean they won't make anything for Switch, but I suspect besides Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Legends EA, if there's any new titles, they're going to be on the smaller size, or they're going to be like remakes and remasters. I kind of feel like he's essentially saying we're not really going to be putting that much focus on making big, grand, exclusive games for Switch. We're putting that into Switch 2, but that doesn't mean we won't release nothing on Nintendo Switch. But we'll have to see what happens, right? Obviously, proof is in the pudding, and we haven't even gotten to April 2nd where we're going to see a ton of games for Switch 2. So anyways, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Obviously, a pretty long video. These Q&A ones are always pretty long. We don't always cover them, but I thought there was a lot of useful context in here for Nintendo's mindset around Switch and Switch 2 heading into April and heading into launch. Hopefully, you guys learned something. I am Nathaniel Rovajance, and you know what? If you don't watch this video or you made it to this part, maybe I'll catch you tonight. We're going to be live streaming. Bye, everyone.